All day, every day, we hear a number of statistics regarding how likely we are to get into what colleges, who those future #thug life kids are gonna be. We hear that if your parents are successful, who drive shiny cars and have a master's degree in something smart, you're more likely to go into the top schools and get the top jobs and continue the happy life cycle set forth by their parents. We hear that if your parent was a drug addict or alcoholic, you're more likely to have different problems and make the same unsuccessful life choices. We hear that if your parents work hard at minimum wage jobs but didn't go to college, you yourself are less likely to go to college. And we hear that if you're poor, you're altogether more likely to drop out of school. And all day we hear these confines and expectations that society has for us. But the problem with this kind of thinking is that it does not embrace the individual. It traps them in a cage and tells them what they can and cannot do. It doesn't tell them that they can be successful being exactly who they are. And I'm sure we all had a friend who has really successful parents who put an overwhelming pressure on them to themselves be successful, because that's what statistics tell them they're supposed to be. And your friend has always tried to follow in their parents' footsteps because that's what's expected of them. They're expected to get the top grades, to get into the same top Ivy League school their parents got into. And when people see your friend, they say, wow, you look just like your mom or dad. That even their face and who they look like is supposed to be a replication of who their parents were. But you never heard that your friend wanted to be a dancer, that they loved that kind of freedom of expression, because that's not what society told them they were supposed to chase after. And this is because of statistical profiling. But before I go any further, I should probably introduce myself. My name is McKayla Wandell, and as she said earlier, I am a junior at Baldwin High School. I've had other successes in my life, reasonably high GPA on the Teen Advisory Council for the Hawaii Meth Project, and I've been the co-author of a peer-reviewed scientific paper along with speaker Aaron here. But if you were to define me as the X in your statistical formula, you should have seen that I never should have succeeded in anything. In fact, I shouldn't even be able to be here to speak to you because kids like me don't have the opportunity to. And according to the Child Welfare Agency, 13.9% of children ages 5 and younger whose parents were alcoholic or drug addicts are more likely to develop physical, social, academic, and mental problems. And that's a lot of people, as you can tell from the blue. And later on the Child Welfare Agency's website, they talk about CPS workers and how they can better handle these kids. And it was statistics like these that one of my history teachers full-heartedly believed in. She believed in these statistics along with the other statistics that penetrate our schools. And one day, she was going off about how these kids don't want to be in school, clog the system, and make it harder for her to teach. And this enraged me. I was thrown aback. I was like, how can you stereotype such a large group of people so negatively? And so I spoke up. I said, Miss History teacher, I think that's wrong. You can't say that about all these kids. My dad was a meth addict, but I was and always have been a top student. I was tired of hearing that I was less than, indirectly. And all she said was, McKayla, you're just an exception. And growing up, I didn't know what normal was or what being an exception meant. When I was 2, my parents were divorced and I lived with my dad for a lot of the time. And yes, he was a meth addict. And as you can imagine, that would be kind of hard because it was just him and us, and he had this addiction that he struggled with. And so he wasn't always able to provide us with some of the things we needed, like a steady house or food. And oftentimes he just couldn't be there because of that addiction. And he didn't know, but at the time our babysitter was really a drug enforcer who, that kind of big scary guy that the really powerful drug dealer scary guy sends to collect things. And as you can tell from things like that, my childhood wasn't really, lightly colored walls and, kind of happiness and fun like that. But that doesn't mean the only things that came from my past were negative. In fact, some of the best things that I'm proud of, some of my greatest passions, my morals, have stemmed from this. One of my greatest passions is science. And because as a kid, I didn't know why things were happening, it made me ask why. I was like, why was I so different from all these other kids? Why didn't I go home to my parents? I went home to my grandparents. Why did they have their moms or dads when I didn't? And I was just confused about all this, and I would ask why. And I'd ask my grandma, why were these things happening? And she would just say, that's the way life was. But these kinds of answers didn't satisfy me. And this translated into the way I learned in the classroom. And I remember in second grade, I was in class, and we were learning about the water cycle, why it rains and how it goes down on Earth and goes back up. And I asked why this was happening. I was the annoying kid in class with always their hand up, wanting to ask why. And every time I got an answer back, I felt like the world was okay. Like I could get the answers that I sought, and I just felt okay with the world. And this translated into my love for science. Finding out the different answers of why things were happening is kind of what science is about. And I think this is a great positive thing. At the age of 15, I co-authored a peer-reviewed paper with the Maui Double Star Association, which is pretty cool. I think that's awesome, especially because I'm a dork who loves science. It's like, yeah. But I also found the dangers in meth and other drugs. This may not seem like a big deal to any of you here, but that was a big deal to me because a lot of people do suffer with these kinds of addictions. I realized that I never wanted to lose myself in the chase of something else. I wanted to hold on to who I am and my morals and my beliefs, and not to compromise those things, which is a big thing that you need to learn as a growing person. So from something that may be seemingly negative and only detrimental to my mental state, as the statistics said it should be, it was really one of the positive and greatest things that could come from my life, a great love and passion, and outstanding morals and beliefs, which are hard to learn at a young age. And I categorize addiction as losing yourself because the man my father was as an addict is not the man my father is. And when I talk about statistical profiling, I'm talking about statistics that disregard who you are as a person and categorize you. Whereas regular statistics that talk about facts, something that happens scientifically that has no prejudice. Statistics that 86% of people who use meth for the very first time become instantly addicted. And because my father made one wrong choice in his life doesn't mean he is some horribly negative person. That's not true. But statistics that 90% of meth addicts who ever try to recover relapse. And only 12% of them will make it past 3 years clean. It's statistics like those, statistical profiling, that takes away hope from the individual. It doesn't allow them to see that they can do anything, that they have potential. And especially when you're an addict, someone who doesn't have much hope, you need all the hope you can get. So we need not to tell these people who may be at some of the lowest points in their life that, statistically, the odds aren't in their favor. You need to tell them not to listen to these things, that they can do it, that they can be who they want to be, the true person they are. And, hearing these statistics and knowing the odds were in my dad's favor, when he tried to recover a few times, he relapsed. But when he finally took a stand and said that I can do this, that I will do this for myself and by God and my kids, he could do it. He did it. And, the statistics that 12% stay clean for past 3 years, well, my dad's been clean for more than 7, which is great. And, a lot of the times our society doesn't want to say positive things about people who we cast off. And some of the things that I've said positively about my father, like the fact that he owns his own business and is a great businessman. He's remarried, and I knew if he had a child with my stepmom, he would be an amazing father. A lot of those positive things I would say to news reporters and anchormen would be cut from both television programs and from our papers. And that doesn't help our society move forward and progress. So we need to tell them that they can do it and show that there are people who have. And, I may have mentioned earlier my love for science. Huge science nerd. Don't worry, I'm not going to give you like a lecture on something. But one of my favorite scientists is Michael Faraday. In 1831, he discovered electromagnetic induction, which is cool, but won't go into it. And the way his brain thought was brilliant. When he did a lab, he wasn't just looking at the effects and jotting them down in his notebook. He was visualizing in his mind the different things that were going on. He could see the electromagnetic field and different objects interacting with it, which is kind of crazy. I have hard times visualizing why it's hot with lights on me, but he could visualize all these incredible things and why they were happening in his brain. But when he first entered the scientific arena, just to learn and go to lectures, the different noble men of the time, who were all scientists, asked him why he was there. Why was he even trying? He was a blacksmith's son. He was a bookbinder's apprentice. And he stopped being educated at the age of 14 because that was what was expected of him. And all these people were like, why are you here? You're just a blacksmith's son. But he eventually fought for a mentor to help him do his own experiments. And in 1831, when he made this great discovery, which led to electricity, which is how great it is, even his own mentor said that he plagiarized. He was just plagiarizing this. He couldn't have done it. He's a blacksmith's son. Nothing can come of him. But he fought for it, and he said, I could do it, and I did do it. And then people started to accept them. They started to throw back these ideas that just because of your past, you can't do something. And this was in the 1800s. So I think today, we can do that. Some of the greatest people that we have in our society who have accomplished things have come from this diversity. Michael Faraday being one, Einstein, people who aren't involved in science, I just like science. And fields like athletics, Michael Jordan didn't make it on his high school team. And all of these other great people believed in themselves, not in the statistics that told them what they should have been. And that's my challenge for you today, is to know that you have the same potential that Michael Faraday had, that Michael Jordan had, that Obama has. You have the same potential that all of these great people had. Harvest it. Believe in it. Don't listen to these statistical profiles that you should be anything else than what you want to be. Because you can do it. And you should tell other people that they can do it. You should put faith in other people and hope. So go out and just believe in yourselves. Thank you.